Well, tax day. Did you know got taxes done, Trace? Almost, Mr. Taxman.
Almost.
He'll be there, I promise.
Almost.
All right. Well, it is almost upon us tomorrow, but so is something else, folks. Have you heard about all this? I know you have if you've been watching here. Tea Party Day is going to happen tomorrow. April 15th is going to mark that day. You know, Trace and I were talking about how many people are going to turn out. Nobody knows for sure, but there are some estimates that there might be hundreds of thousands of people out there protesting a lot of things. Government spending, the stimulus package, and they've rolled it all up into this spirit on tax day. It's in the spirit. Look at all of them. That's where they're expected to be tomorrow. Looks like the flight path across the United States. The Boston Tea Party is the inspiration for all of this, and they're going to take place in 750 locations across the country, according to those who are involved in all this. Let's bring in today's panel. Eric Odom is one of those people. He's a national organizer for TaxDayTeaParty.com. Bill Press is a radio talk show host and host of The Bill Press Show. And Griff Jenkins is our own Fox News correspondent. Of course, he's going to be out there. I'm sure Griff will have some interesting video to send back to us tomorrow, so we look forward to that as well. Eric, let me start with you. How many people do you think are going to turn out? And, you know, where did all of this get started? And, you know, to whom do you attribute the vast organization of all this?
Boy, that's a good question. To address your first question, how many do we expect to attend?
Yeah.
We have no idea. We do anticipate it'll be well into the hundreds of thousands, or at least six figures. 10 plus cities will easily be 5,000 plus. And right now, you mentioned 500 earlier. At TaxDayTeaParty.com, we are tracking 760 cities that will occur almost simultaneously tomorrow. So this is going to be a very historic day. Now, with regards to where this started, we're still trying to figure that out ourselves. These have kind of been happening sporadically over the years, and I think it was all just kind of brewing and boiling and ready to come out in this sort of force. And Rick Santelli, when he made his rant on February 19th, kind of made the
Right.
national call, hey, we need to get out and publicly state our distaste with government spending, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the signs that we're showing, and Bill Press, I want to get your thoughts on this. Some of those signs say what I've seen a lot of them say across the country, and that's no bailouts, no bonuses. These are the kind of things that have these people very angry across the country. What do you make of all this?
I smell a rat, frankly, Martha. Look, I've taken part in a lot of protests. I don't see anything genuine or anything real about these protests. Let's be honest. They were organized, they were designed, they're paid for by three conservative organizations, starting with Freedom Works, which is headed by Dick Armey, former Republican
Well, let
House
me ask you, Bill,
Majority
because
Leader.
you know what? We contacted Dick Armey's office and we asked him about it, and they said, you know, well, gee, we'd love to take credit for all this, but we cannot. They said that they've done some things with helping get permits and along those lines. That's what he said right there. We'd like to say that we're one of the driving forces, but we are not the driving force behind the protests. We're mainly helping activists get in touch with each other. They also went on to say that Freedom Works is one of the groups that has, you know, done some work on this, and they hope that tomorrow is just the beginning. So I guess they're pretty proud of whatever involvement they've had in this. And I also want to play, this is a soundbite from Fox and Friends this morning, Bill, and then I want you to respond to this, because these are, you said you know, these are some of the voices. These are individuals. Take a look.
Okay.
We've been hit by the financial crisis and the recession, and we are like everyday Americans. We don't want our neighbors paying for our mortgage. We don't want excessive taxes, and we want fiscal responsibility with our tax dollars.
So these folks, they said earlier in that soundbite that they lost their home. They both lost their jobs, and that was part of their inspiration for getting involved. They said, we don't want our neighbor to pay for our house and bail us out. So what do you think about those two things, Bill?
No, those are genuine sentiments on their part. I'm not blaming anybody for taking part in these things. And some people, a lot of people, millions of Americans have really been hurt by this economic crisis that we're in, Martha. But my point is, the timing of this I just find very suspicious. Where were all of these? If the object is really too much government spending, where were all these people for the last 8 years when George Bush gave us the biggest federal deficits and the biggest federal budgets ever? Where were we when the budget was being debated in the Congress?
I think a lot of people think that this was starting to brew then. And, you know, you hear a lot of anger about George Bush doubling the deficit, and you hear that from conservatives as well. So, and that has now been tripled. We're now talking $10 trillion. Go ahead.
Right, but my point is that at that time, they were the largest, the biggest deficit in history. One after another, 8 in a row. Where were these protesters? Why is it that they occur in the first 12 weeks of the Obama administration?
This is disingenuous.
Go ahead, Eric.
This is disingenuous. This is disingenuous to argue that we were silent last year when Bush pushed through the socialist-style bailouts of the auto industry. We've been outraged all along. It has nothing to do with the current administration. The last administration has everything to do with government that is completely out of control of spending.
Can I ask you a quick question?
And by the way, let me just add one point. Last year, when the Don't Go movement got started during the energy debate, these same tinfoil type people said that the oil companies were funding what we were doing online. I would love to get that check, and I would love to know where to send the invoice. But the reality is, these are everyday Americans who have worked countless hours over the last 6 weeks, and it's an insult to us for those who are just making things up and hoping that something sticks, and it needs to stop. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Bill, I'm not sure where the anger comes from towards these people, Bill. I'm curious about it, because to me, it's it's free speech. A lot of people are disgruntled about the economy. A lot of people are unhappy, and I see this very much being a bipartisan issue. You've got people out there who are Republicans, who are Democrats, who are independents, who are ticked off, to be frank.
Right.
No, of course there are, Martha. And listen, I think you're totally misrepresenting what I'm saying. I am not at all criticizing the people who are out at these protests or denying that they've got every good reason to be angry. Okay. What I'm pointing out is it is very politically suspicious that there were no protests last April 15, but suddenly they're all occurring this year. All I'm saying is I smell a rat. Look,
the economy was in much better shape, not in great shape.
If I can just finish, Eric, if I can just finish, Eric, I have to tell you where I'm coming from on taxes. On April 15, I count my blessings. I'm an American. I'm proud to be an American. I'm grateful to be an American. I think about the great schools we have, the great military we have, and I gladly pay my taxes.
All right, let's talk to taxpayer Griff Jenkins and see what he thinks about this. I assume Griff pays his taxes. I don't want to raise any red flags for you or anything, buddy. But go ahead. What are you seeing out there, Griff? You're reporting on this.
Well, that's great stuff, Martha, that we're seeing between Bill and Eric. Look, here's the deal, right? Where's it go? It goes back to the Boston Tea Party. It was America's first grassroots movement ever, and it led to the birth of this great nation. What you're seeing now is a lot of passion on both sides. There's a political point here, though, Martha. Tomorrow's a significant day. It's going to be the first barometer. If thousands, hundreds of thousands of people turn out, and Eric said over 700 cities we had our map up. If it's a big turnout, then I think that populist anger and those sentiments, people getting energized over the excesses of a new administration in Congress, well, that point will be made, and it'll be a big political point made. If it's a lackluster event, as Bill points out, then I think that's going to score big points for the Democrats.
Yeah. Bill, I was thinking about, prior protests, and I thought about some of the protests about the Iraq War, for example, okay? And a lot of people during that said, this is a small number of people who are saying this, but in many ways, it was a sentiment, one of the sentiments that went to electing President Barack Obama. So I think it's wrong to sort of, say, oh, this comes from a larger organization, or you have to recognize, and I think you are in what you're saying here, that there is a real, honest disgruntlement on the part of a lot of people about the way this economic crisis is being handled. Do you recognize that?
Of course. Well, I think there's a lot of pain because of the economic crisis, Martha, and there's a lot of anger, particularly at Wall Street, because they got the money. They didn't put the money out where money was needed, and they used a lot of that money to pay the bonuses. But look, first of all, in the Iraq War, I wish there had been massive protests in the streets against the Iraq War. There were not. And again, if these people look,
there were.
I'm
appalled.
I'm appalled. Oh, come on, there were not. I was out there against the war, the one march in Washington.
There were anti-war protests all across the country during the Iraq War.
Absolutely.
I would have to weigh in there. I was out there.
Griff, last thought from you, gentlemen. I appreciate your debating, all of this, and I'm glad you're with us. Griff, one last thought before we let this go, and we'll join it again tomorrow, for no doubt.
Well, one last thought is here in D.C., what I'm covering in Lafayette Park, tomorrow morning, 1 million tea bags will be delivered by like 9 a.m. to be on display. It's being done by a grassroots group, Reagan.org. What will that say?
And we should also point out that they're not just mad at Wall Street. They're mad at the government. They're mad at a lot of people who they think have misused their trust. Bill Press, thank you, Bill. Eric Odom, thank you very much. Griff Jenkins,
Martha, thanks
good
for
to talk
having me.
to all of you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, gentlemen.